Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. And today I've got Ray on here. He's a great colleague of mine, as well as a private practice owner who has recently, over the past couple of years, been frustrated with private practice and found a portion of the marketplace that was needing a new change. So he ended up going to create an EMR alternative, which helps save you time, retain patients, win back patients, overall make you money, make your life a lot easier, and have your private practice grow and thrive. So thanks for hopping on the call today, Ray, and tell everyone a little bit about just your background and who you are and where you kind of came from.
Well, first, thanks for having me, Brad. I always love talking with you, man. So I'm Ray Brunelli. I'm a private practice owner. I had my practice which I sold in January, and now I'm getting ready to open up a small one again. But for 15 years, got really, really frustrated. Like the documentation piece just killed me. Like I absolutely hated it. I'd work a 10-hour day and then I'd come home and I'd have an hour and a half or 2 hours worth of paperwork to do. And just over a series of years, that grated on me. And the more successful I became, the more it weighed down on me, because there was more paperwork and more systems that I had to manage and run and make sure other people were managing and running. So over a period of time, I'm a math dork, right? So I started to look at it and figure out how much time I was spending on a weekly basis over like the previous 10 years of my career. And I figured out I spent over 2.5 years of my life on 40 hours a week doing documentation. Right. So I'd go home and I'd sit there and my family would be on the ground, and there I am typing away. My family's over there playing while I'm face down in my keyboard, or I'd stay up late and try and get all my notes done, or go in early and try to get caught up. And honestly, it reached a tipping point. Looked at every EMR under the sun. I switched. I tried all kinds of different stuff. Nothing, number one, worked well. It didn't really integrate with anything else. It didn't make my practice any money. And at the same time, it consumed my free time. So I started to build deciding, hey, there's got to be something different. Like there has to be a better way, the proverbial better mousetrap. There's got to be a better way. So then we started working about 7 years ago. And that's what brought us today.
Awesome. So I know I've seen your software and stuff that you've been doing and whatnot, and experienced, obviously, the frustrations, especially having a clinic with multiple different types of health practitioners, as well as a ton of patients coming in, new patients and patients on plans of care and whatnot. So I want to talk a little bit about your software and just overall the where you kind of fill in some of the gaps, because what you've got is really unique, and I think it's really important for people to understand that your EMR-based system should be not just something that you use, but something that can actually save you a ton of time, be able to track how your other health practitioners or staff or independent contractors, whatever, are doing with KPIs, as well as also understanding a bit about what we've mentioned before in past interviews here about the patient success journey life cycle, and being able to manage where they are. Maybe that's the plan of care drop off and that type of stuff. So, I guess let's kind of start at the first step about just overall saving time and some of those KPIs.
Okay, so the saving time piece, right? So, okay, there's this cycle that I had in my practice, and I'm sure a lot of people have this. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. So you get busy, right? And the things that you did to make yourself busy then start to overwhelm you, right? So then you don't do the things that you did to make yourself busy. So then you slack off on those things. So because your business is so busy, and then your business starts to slow down. Then you start to implement those things again, and your business starts to pick up, and you get busy, and then you slack off on them again, because there's this give and take. There's only so many hours in a day. So honestly, that was consuming a ton of my time. So I started having other people trying to manage different aspects of our systems that we had to make us busy, right? The problem then became, the tracking, all of that. And then you lose somebody, you've got to retrain somebody else. It became very cumbersome. So then I decided, look, why can't we just automate this? Like, why can't this thing just run automatically, turn itself off and on when it needs to turn itself off and on, and fill my practice up and keep my practice full without me making a whole ton of effort toward this thing? So yeah, so we started to build. We started looking at the 4 key drop-off points. So like, we found that we were losing patients, and I work with a bunch of other practice owners, losing patients at particular points in time, right? So that eval no-show, right? So WebPT a couple of years ago did their state of rehab survey, said 11% of people that get scheduled never actually arrive in the clinic.
That's huge.
Yeah, over 10% of your business goes away before it ever gets there. So like, what if we can get half of that? What if we can get 6%? And then if you know compounding interest, every year, if you get 6%, then you get 6% on the 6%, in 12 years, you double how many people you have, right? But the life cycle of a patient is 4 weeks. So theoretically, in 1 year, you can double a practice just through plugging that one little hole, right? And that's just one hole. Then the hole after that is your first visit. After your first visit, people's expectations aren't met. Well, they aren't set, number one, and then they aren't met, because if you don't set them, they'll set them themselves. So they either expect to feel better, they don't expect to get sore, and so they drop off there, right? The third place, again, this is off of that WebPT state of rehab survey, the highest drop-off point in therapy, and I don't even know why this is visit number 4. That's where you have the highest incidence of losing your patients, right? I don't know if it's because they're a couple visits in, and now they're not seeing what they want to see, and they're dropping off. But we decided we need to create a system to plug that hole. Then when people get their explanation of benefits, right? If they're in an insurance model, they get that EOB in the mail, denials, their deductibles, all that stuff showing up. They get scared, and about 5% of people quit at that point. So I was like, okay, I want to get ahead of all of these, right? But I don't want to have to manage lists and try, because that's what we were trying to do, manage lists and trying to make sure who's on the right list, who's getting the text messages, who's getting the emails, who's getting ringless calls that go to voicemail, to manage all of this. So I decided to automate it, kind of build it into your EMR so that it's automated, so that it just runs when it's supposed to run. So the message is always there for the customer at the right time. So that's kind of the crux of the first engagement with the patient, the first automating an AI of that engagement.
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful, because a lot of the time, like for other clinics that I've worked at and done consulting with, it saves you a ton of time, because people, a lot of the time, if they don't have any time at all, they just don't do it. And if you don't do it, that's where you're leading to these numbers. And I remember us talking before, and I think it was something like 70% of people don't finish their plan of care. So, if we're saying that an average, let's say an annual patient value or APV is maybe $2,000, if you're only getting 50%, you're actually hamstringing your profitability and your overall revenue that you can get by being able to do that. So I think it's super important to be able to, people will say, I don't have time, or it's a front desk, or they don't have an actual system for it. These are things that you really, really need to have, especially if you've got a clinic and looking to be able to grow and expand and be more profitable. Because often as we grow, your profitability doesn't necessarily match. And I think that's a big misconception, is that sometimes I've seen people who are solo practitioners more profitable than people who have got 5 or 6 staff because of that. So, these systems really save you time, because you're able to automate them, and you're also able to get notifications if someone is, hitting a specific marker, right? So you're able to actually, notify someone if they don't show. So tell us like a little bit about what that looks like. Let's say I booked Ray on the schedule. Ray got cold feet for whatever reason, he didn't show up. What do you have set up in order to, get those people back in, or ideally, have them not no show in the first place?
Right. So that's what I was just saying. The first step in getting them to show up the second time is never letting them reach the second time. Like, you have to have your systems from that first phone call in, right? So you have to have that scripted first phone call. You need to know what's said, what information is gathered, what the person on that phone is saying to them, right? Then after that, you need to set their expectation. This is what you're going to see from us. And, then you meet that expectation, or hopefully even exceed that expectation. So, you're engaging with them. So everybody has things that gives them pause. Those are fear, doubt, and uncertainty, right? So our goal is to do everything that we can to remove that barrier, to knock each one of those down and then the patient will actually show up. If when they don't show up, now you're honestly, now that they haven't already shown up, they've already made a decision. So it's almost, honestly, you can get some of them, but it's almost too late to win those people back, because you have to get ahead of the problem. If the easiest way to prevent your house from burning down is never letting it catch fire, right? If you're trying to put the fire out, you're in a bad spot already. So if they've already got to the point where they didn't show up, you're already kind of behind the 8 ball. Now there is a small percentage of those that you can engage with and get them to come back, but honestly, like our missed appointment tracking and follow up, that stuff, it's effective, but it's not as effective as making sure that system coming in is making sure that only 5% of those people instead of 11% actually fall to the point where they're scheduled and they didn't show for that first visit.
For sure. And what I think is really important about, traditional EMR or record-based software is that there's no way to actually really manage that or automate it, or you need to have some other software that doesn't connect or anything else, and it becomes really frustrating. So, I think with what you've got, it's important because you identified those things. So not only do you save time, but you're actually it's actually making you money, because you're ultimately being able to bring people back in. So even if you're whatever EMR and whatnot you're using now, you definitely want to make sure, knowing that those numbers, you've got a large percentage of drop-offs, 10% of people not even coming in for the first appointment. You got to do something about that, because if you're spending money on marketing and trying to get new patients coming in and people aren't even making it, 10% of them, that's a lot of money that you could be losing. And when I look at clinics' numbers, ultimately I'll look and see, and a lot of the times people don't actually track how many people show up, how many people actually complete their plan of care. So those are two big questions that I ask, clients, of saying, like, well, how many people make it to the first? A lot of the time people will tell you, well, we had 50 leads and 10 of them we couldn't get a hold of, and another 20 of them said no, and then so there, let's say there's 20 left that could come in, but they don't actually track how many people actually show. So that's a huge number, because then you're getting inflated conversion percentages and so on, as well as if you're not tracking plans of care, you're assuming that someone's worth $2,000, but you're only collecting $1,000 on that. You're less profitable, and that's where people run into problems. Right. So, whatever software you've got, you want to make sure that you have those numbers completely solidified, because if you don't, you're really, kind of in a dark cave with not much for a light, maybe your cell phone light, and that's about it.
Yeah. Brad, I love the one thing, you were just saying about numbers, right? Like, this is the crazy thing, right? So if 70% of your people don't complete the plan of care, 11% of the people never actually show up in your practice at all. Churn rate, people don't even, like, the churn rate of past patients, people, they don't even know, like, they don't even track what that is. They have no idea. of that, and they don't even try to do anything to leverage those people to get them coming back. By and large, don't get me wrong. There's some people out there that have got good systems, but 70% leave, 11% never show up. Like, the bulk of your money, the numbers are showing, is just going away. The bulk of the money in your practice is just going away. And then you and I actually have discussed this specifically before. You have a bucket with holes drilled in it everywhere, and it's just dumping water. And you say, well, I just need more water. Like, we just need to turn the spigot on a little bit more so we can get a couple more new patients, but you're leaking them out all over the place like a sieve, So say you get those patients, I get 10 new patients. One of them didn't show up ever. 9 of them, of that 9, the remaining, at least 7 of those are going away before they complete their plan of care. Like, if you tighten this up, there's more than enough people in most people's practices to make their practice absolutely boom. But we always look at the low-hanging fruit. I just need more patients.
Yeah, and I think part of that is, from my aspect, it's interesting to get your thoughts on it. But I think it's not really taught as much, right? It's everything around us is taught about bringing new people in and celebrating all these wins, but we're not really taught about all of these other, retaining and whatnot. And I always see it as, if you've got someone coming in, you've got really good systems to retain, they're going to get good results. And if you've got a really good system to be able to get referrals, then all of a sudden you've decreased your acquisition cost significantly. You're going to be significantly more profitable. It's easier for you to grow. So, for me, like, I always really focused on, and I always say, like, marketing is retention, and a portion of your retention should be coming from the marketing based budget, because it is such an important aspect. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, like that, honestly, that's probably the most profitable portion of my software. So the idea that we can know what every patient thinks about the practice. So if you can identify the ones who want to refer to you, they actively want to send you more people, right? If you can identify them and then reach out to them and ask them and engage with them and create a relationship with them, you have a lifetime referral source, right? Because they're going to tell everybody about you. But first off, you have to identify you have to know who they are, because you don't want to ask the wrong person, because it's actually off-putting if they don't want to refer to you, right? Mm-hmm. Then we have automated systems for people that are likely to return, right? So if we identify someone in the software as likely to return, we have systems that start running it like 2 or 3 months out. Bang, starts engaging with them. Hey, how is everything? It starts figuring out if they have a problem and brings them back into the practice for another follow-up visit, for a brush-up visit is what we call them. So you bring them in for that 15-minute brush-up visit to see how they're doing with everything. And we find that 70% of those people end up back in the clinic as a patient, as another plan of care. But most of the time what happens is after we discharge them, we say, hey, thanks for coming. I'm glad everything went so well. And that's it. Maybe they get an email from you. Most people don't have some system, but if they do, maybe they get an email or 2 from you, but they don't ever really get engaged. You're not calling them. You're not following up. You're not texting them. You're not creating this environment, making them another offer. Because, every industry, this is an industry across all industries, 80% of your business comes from 20% of your past customers. So if you can increase that 20% to 30%, that 80% now grows by 50%. So your business has 40% growth with just a 10% bump.
And
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's exponentially bigger and easier way to grow your business, because people already know, like, and trust you. And a lot in my experience that I deal with a lot of active adults and athletic based people. They probably have other things they need to work on. So, the plans of care, sure, they come in for a shoulder problem, but we try to get someone on a maintenance plan of care to be able to kind of stay ahead of the curve. And obviously, from a continuity standpoint, it's better for your income. It's better for them because they can stay on top of it. But kind of, I think for some people, it's really changing the mindset of getting out of the mindset of saying, well, you know what, I fixed someone in 4 sessions and they're amazing and I'm the best ever and they never need to see me again. Well, in my cases, I end up seeing a lot of those practitioners' patients because sure, he came in for a shoulder problem. They didn't have that anymore, but there was other issues that were going on. So, is there things that we can be offering these patients or getting them engaged rather than just a new random newsletter or, hey, book when you want, and engaging is absolutely huge. So, maybe tell us like a little bit about, because we talked a bit about customer satisfaction. So kind of maybe start there of like, how do we get someone to complete a full plan of care? Like what kind of things do you suggest in order to like keep people engaged and actually even be able to track if people are happy and satisfied where they are?
Right. So I'm going to swing back around to the getting people to complete their plan of care, but I just want to make one point before we swing back around to that. Okay. So this ties in. How do we identify them? So we have an app that we use. We use a Net Promoter Score. I know what it is. I'm not sure all your users or your listeners do, so I'll explain it. A Net Promoter Score, which you've probably already seen, is how likely are you to refer us to a family or friend on a scale of 0 to 10.
It's one question that you would send or ask to someone.
Correct. So now you ask them that question. If they give you a 9 or a 10, this person loves you and wants to refer to you. They actively want to refer people to you. A 7 or 8, they like you, and they'll use you, but they're not going to refer people to you. A 6 or below, these people really don't like you, and you want them to forget you as soon as possible.
Detractor.
Yep, because they will walk around and say bad stuff about you and your business, right? So marketing to them is actually counterproductive. Mm-hmm. It will cost you more money. So those 9 or 10s, right? So with my system, since one of the limitations on a Net Promoter Score is it's generally emailed or text message. You're relying on the other person to go out of their way, give you some time to respond to this, right? People are busy. They're going to ignore it. It's going to go on the back burner.
It's only one question.
Correct.
I get it too.
Correct. And so that's what I found. So we tested this, split tested this over and over and over again. Didn't work, right? You're getting 30, 40, maybe 50% of the information. So then we decided, okay, let's create an iPad app where when the patient walks in the door, the front office asks them to fill it out in the waiting room and they hand this thing to them. So now we're getting 99% compliance because, when someone asks you, hey, would you mind answering this for us? You have to look them in the face and say no. Most people don't do that. They'll say, oh, sure. Here you go. Thanks. And then once we have that information and we know what they're thinking about you, now we use it to gain Google reviews automatically. They get an email. But then on the back end, which is what I wanted to talk about, when that person comes back in those 9 or 10s, and I know they're a 9 or 10, and they went through the sequence to get that return visit, when they come back in, say they came for their back, I can't even tell you how often they become a neck patient off of a visit for their back, but they love you. They love you. And I know before they walk in the door that they love me. So then those people, it's really, really easy to tell them that you can help them with another problem they're having because they already know, like, and trust you. There is no selling. They've already sold themselves on you. So you just tell them you can help them. Would they like you to help them? And they say, well, yeah, let's do it. So now you're re-engaging those people that you had lost previously because you might have just let them forget about you. They did love you, but they might have forgot about you. And then they walk into their doctor or the orthopedic specialist and he's like, hey, I need you to go downstairs to see my, whatever, their own pop practice, so they have their own pop. So they send you down to them. And because you didn't engage with them, because you didn't keep going,
You're
They
not,
didn't come to you, and you lost a lifetime referral. If you lose a 9 or a 10, you're actually losing a referral source.
yeah. And if
So
you lose them, then if your annual value is $2,000, you lost them plus the referral, it's $4,000 potentially that you're losing.
yeah, that's if they only
Really,
refer
really,
one
really,
person.
exactly. And that's really, really important, factor of being able to retain.
Yeah, all because you didn't have them come back in and find out that their neck hurt. You have them come back in for that back follow-up visit. Hey, anything else going on? Oh, yeah, my neck's been bugging me a little bit, but bang, they're your patient instead of the pop practice because they went to the orthopedic specialist. So, yeah, then the other question that you asked was on the retention on the front end, right? Honestly, the automation in it is all to set expectation, right? We want to set expectation and build a relationship. Set expectation, build a relationship. So a lot of times people damage themselves by doing generic stuff, and it cheapens the relationship with the other person. So if you get emails from me, Brad, and you know they're generic, and I've sent them to 1,000 people, it doesn't do anything to build the relationship with us. Actually, it kind of annoys you. You're like, I thought Ray and I were actually friends. Why is he sending me this? So you're deleting it, you're ignoring it, whatever. So if you actually send them something that has personal information in it, and then they walk in the clinic and my app notifies you that they got this email or text message when they show up, it says, hey, you sent them a text message. And you walk into the waiting room and I look at you and I say, hey, Brad, I sent you a text. Did you get it? And you say, oh, yeah. Now, this is totally different. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, I sent you an email. Did you get my email? And now it's totally different. You're like, wait a minute, that wasn't a BS email. He actually took the time to write me an email, because most of the time these systems run. They just run out here, and your staff has no idea what's going, no idea what's of any kind. So then it doesn't help. It doesn't build a relationship with the patient. But when it becomes part of an ecosystem, right? So now the automation and the messaging from the actual human being are the same. Now we're starting to create a relationship and strengthen the relationship with the other person, because they think you're going out of the way for them, because we all want to feel important. So that's how you retain those people, is you set their expectation, you tell them what's going to happen before it happens, and then you deliver and exceed. And then you tell them again, okay, this is what's going to happen, and then you deliver or exceed. Then, and you acknowledge the fact that you've done this. You refer to the fact that you've done it over and over and over again. So this is one more way of exceeding that expectation, because they're not used to this. So those things are the things that create the system. So then your drop-offs, your cancellations, your no-shows, they all start to improve, because the person has an actual relationship with you and they think that you're going out of your way for them.
I think it's a huge thing. And I always talk about, communication is huge. You want it to feel like a community, that a family, that people care about you, and ultimately you're investing time and money, especially like for me and others, like in cash-based business, especially in Canada, like, all this stuff, a lot of it's free. Like a lot of people can go get a script and then go get physio up the road or chiro or whatever it is. So to charge premium rates and ultimately have that, we need to be able to do something different. And I think it's a really big component that I talk a lot about, is that, I've done a tons, like 100,000 plus in continuing education for professional aspect, my business, for like ART and functional neurology and whatever it is. Those things don't make you money, and patients don't care. What they care more about is you knowing them, knowing what's going on in their life, being able to connect with them and say, like, really build that relationship. And, no one is ever going to get mad at you. Like, part of my goal, I always say, is like, I want someone to get mad at me for following up too much, because I care more about them getting results and feeling better than they do. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I always say is the expectation, like from the front desk based staff and therapists or whoever, is like, over deliver and be relentless in being able to make them feel awesome, because nobody's going to get mad at you for caring too much about them. If they do, then you don't want them. So, prefer them out.
Right. our goal, like just that, the wowing the patient thing, right? Like, so now that I'm doing just one-on-one, our systems are set up so that to wow on visit 2. Visit 1, we want to impress them. Visit 2 is the wow for us, right? Because so we have a checklist. There's 3 things that you need to get. You have to sneak this information for them. You can't just flat out ask it. You've got to dig and find this information. You start talking about music. Bring it up. Everybody likes music. Find out what they like, what they're listening to. Number 2, find out what their favorite drink is. You walk in with a drink and start talking about the drink and that you love it. People just will reciprocate and tell you what they like to drink and the way they like it, right? Or you can pry a little bit. So, oh, you like coffee? Oh, yeah, I love coffee. I'm just black though. I don't like anything in it. And then they'll reciprocate. They'll say, oh, I normally. So when they do this, that's information number 2. I want to know what they like to drink. Number 3, find out if they have hobbies and what they're into. So we sneak these 3 pieces of information so that on visit 2, then that they're greeted with that drink. The room that they walk into is the music that they like. And whatever their hobby is, we find a way to bring a magazine, something that interests them, printed articles. Hey, I saw this and I thought about you. So, and then it's laying there. So in visit number 2, if you can get them to visit number 2, they're a lifetime patient, because you just wowed their pants off, because they're never going to see that anywhere else. And it's getting 3 pieces of information and then having systems of how you deal with those 3 pieces of information.
And documenting, I think that's a really important point, is that a lot of the people don't actually document any of this stuff. So it's very, one person knows it, but the front desk needs to be able to know it. So being able to have, in one place, or the front desk person can now communicate and understand that as well, creates that ecosystem where people really want to be there in that family environment where people are gladly going to be a part of it and pay and stay and really refer people to you.
Right. And it's the other way around too, from the front desk to, because the front desk will ask them questions and then they come in and the therapist asks them the same question.
Yeah.
Your system should dump your information to your therapist. So then the therapist walks in and says, hey, I spoke with, I don't know, say Tammy. I spoke with Tammy and she said, this is what you have going on and this is what you've tried. And, I just want to make sure that I understand the information that she gave me correctly and I'm not missing anything. Right? It's totally different. Totally different. When you greet them, the first time you greet them, you tell them that, hey, come on back. We're going to get you back to whatever your goals are. Your 2 goals that you told them on the first phone call, and you've never met the person before. Right? So the exceed expectation, exceed expectation, exceed expectation. Every visit, I want to exceed expectation in some way. And if you do that, the drop-offs disappear. Cancellation, no-shows disappear. And then we have systems where we use, their goals and what's going on. If they do try to cancel, if they, or if they do no show and they don't want to come back on the schedule, we use those goals to re-engage with them, to say that, this is why you're here, but you need a system that displays that for the front office when they need it.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that, just like how that's broken down. Cause I think that's a really important part too, to be able to mobilize your front desk to retain people and ultimately, be able to understand and see visually what's going on.
Yeah. Well, first you have to give them the tools, right? Right. You can't fix an engine if if you're in there with your bare hands, so you have to give that front office person the tools necessary to get the job done. Right. The number one, those goals. So like our system set up so that whenever the phone call comes in, our system scans to see if this is a current or past patient. Then it displays all the information associated with that person. So now when they pick up the phone, they already know who it is. If they were here 2 years ago for their back, they already know that. And they know that they saw Brad 2 years ago for their back. Their net promoter score was a 10. They absolutely loved us. And they wanted to get back to playing with their grandchildren and riding their bike. So all of that displays when the phone rings. So now to close the deal with that person that's calling back in, maybe to inquire about therapy, becomes a much easier process, because you know what? This is one more opportunity to wow them, because they're like, holy crap, you remembered me. Oh yeah, 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 you worked with Brad and you wanted, and you start talking about what the things that are important to them. It's done. They're your patient. They're not picking up the phone call, the phone and calling somewhere else where they don't feel like anybody remembered them or doesn't know them.
Yeah, totally, for sure. I think that's hugely important, and just kind of what we even talked about. It's like making it a lot about the patient, and now, especially with COVID and all these new things that are going on, we want to really make sure we over deliver and over communicate, because that's what's really going to be able to set us apart. And nothing's worse. I can speak from experience. I like to go to other clinics just to see what their processes are like. So around me and whatnot. Even when I travel a lot in the US, I would go to different places and just see what the process was like. And nothing's worse than calling in, booking an appointment, and then showing up, and then them giving you a clipboard full of notes. And then I'm filling out the clipboard full of notes, or sometimes it's digital. Very often, it's not. But then I go in to see the therapist, and it's like, okay, well, they're reviewing all this stuff and asking me questions. It's not a great experience, but if everyone kind of knows, or it's easily accessible information, it makes it significantly easier. It just makes me feel a lot better, because nothing's
Right.
worth having to fill it out, and no one's even reading it, and it's just, you're kind of feeling it's not great. And I think that's a huge turnoff for a lot of people. When I've done polls myself, that's one of the biggest things that people hate is the initial steps of, like, not knowing that I need to fill out these forms, and then they come late. Well, I paid for this appointment. Like, they're not in the right mindset, and you chances are you're probably not going to get this person to rebook, or they're going to have not a great experience with you.
Right. So part of what we do, right? So as part of our software, I had same frustration. So part of what I did and what we've changed about that process is, so whenever that first phone call comes in, and all this information, whenever the patient gets the paperwork, it's already partially filled out. Their name, their date of birth. We didn't ask them for their address because it wasn't important. Their name, their date of birth, what their problem is, what their insurance is, like all this information is filled out. So I'm not asking the patient something and then giving them this blank form to fill out. The form is already filled out as much as we possibly can fill it out, and it's all automated. Because they put it in, it just all flows directly into this patient home app thing, so that they can come in, and when they go to fill that out, and we tell them why, what the benefit of them filling this out ahead of time is. What do they get for doing this ahead of time, right? So we explain that it allows them to have more individualized one-on-one attention with their therapist, less time with their therapist typing on the keyboard, and more interface time with their hands on them. If you explain to the patient why it's a benefit to them, we found that that's 90-some% of the people are just going to fill it out, because they see, okay, this is, yeah, I get it, I get to do this from my house, I'm going to have to fill it out anyway, I might as well do it at home and fill it out. And we've already filled out a good portion of it for you, as much as we could, right? And if you're a return patient, we try to fill out your past medical history for you ahead of time, so you review your past medical history and make changes. So we're not asking you to fill out the same information over and over and over again. We hand you the same form. No, we're going to try to get it there for you. Please review this, and if there are any changes, just make the changes. So yeah, it's a no-brainer, and I'm not sure why it hasn't happened before now.
Yeah, it's huge. I think that's it's a big aspect, to really be able to make people happy and retain them and whatnot. So it's all these small things. That's why I really like to be able to chat with you, and we've always seen eye to eye on a lot of stuff, is being able to do things that are actually lower hanging fruit in your business, but can get you exponential gains. So, how much would your business change if you went from 10% no shows on the first visit to 5%? If you got 70% of the people on average that don't complete a plan of care, if you got even 35% of those people, that might be, in my business, it would be, tens of thousands of dollars per month in being able to do it. So it's absolutely, crucial to be able to get something, set into place. So why don't you tell us, well, we got a couple of minutes here, a little bit just kind of about your software and how people, you best help people and whatnot.
So right now we're targeting the private practice owner that basically was like me. So you're a private practice owner that's treating, and right now we got a 20-20-20 challenge. We're helping 20 private practice owners that still treat, in 20 days, decrease their documentation to 20 minutes a day. right? So that's basically what we do. We help people. Well, and this is in my group, my PT Business Builders group, where I say EMRs suck. We think that systems and software should help, should improve your practice and your life, not consume it. And our only measure of success is a practice owner that has the time and financial freedom to enjoy their life. So that's essentially what we do. We're going to help people decrease their documentation time, create automated systems that are going to fill and grow that practice for them. So it's about giving people their life back. Like, I spent too much time, too many years that I can never get back with my children, and then are gone to me. And I want to make sure that that never happens to anybody again. I want them to be able to spend the time with the people and the things that they love, not trying to get their documentation done, keep their systems running right, make sure everybody's on the right list. It's time consuming, and it's already demanding enough. You shouldn't have to give up your life for it too.
Totally get it. And I think that's such a huge, huge important thing. So if people want to learn more about you, learn more about your software, how they can, really, I guess, get more patients, more profitability, and more freedom, how can they find out about you?
Well, you can check us out at selfdocaimr.com, that artificial intelligence medical record. And we also have ATTASapp.com, AETASapp.com. That's kind of our marketing end. And you can also join my PT Business Builders group if you're interested, and learn a lot there.
Cool, man. So what I'll do is I'll get those links so that way people can just click them and go into there right away. But I definitely recommend anyone who's listening here who is in private practice and wants more time and want to be able to understand these systems to save time and make more money for your business and whatnot, create that better patient experience, to be able to reach out to Ray here. So thanks very much for coming on and explaining some of your successes and ultimately an awesome service product that you created.
Oh, well, Brad, thanks for having me, man. Anytime, anything I can do for you or any of your listeners, ecstatic to, man.
Perfect. Thanks.